This interview was recorded at the Psychedelic Science 2025 in Denver, where we spoke with leading voices in psychedelic research, therapy, spirituality, and policy. Dr. Leor Roseman is a psychedelic researcher whose work focuses on both the individual and collective dimensions of psychedelic experience. From DMT interruption studies to Communitas and intergroup healing in the Israeli-Palestinian context, his research asks bold questions about transformation. In this interview, we discuss how psychedelics can open space for not only personal healing, but collective reconciliation. How did you get involved in the psychedelic field? Did you have any personal experiences, or was it a strictly scientific interest?
Yeah, it wasn't strict. It was definitely experiences that informed me, motivate me to kind of made the passion in me and opened curiosity. So I wanted to inquire into the meaning of them, dedicate myself to something, understanding them. So I was a neuroscientist back then. And then also my psychedelic experiences started, and I was kind of like, okay, I'm gonna do psychedelic neuroscience. But they were also very healing for me and very mind-opening for me. So it was a hobby that slowly turned into a job. Yeah.
If you should explain to people who don't know anything about psychedelics, why are these substances so fascinating for you? How would you explain that?
I would first actually use the visual, right? So they're visionary substances a lot of the time, sometimes not necessarily. So they opened our world of imagination or vision, and then they also open us emotionally very much. So there's a lot of emotion experiences or catharsis or a release that can happen to them. And they can also create like this creative insights, right? So this being in I think, consciousness that is a bit more enchanting with like full of fantasy, that full of meaning. Everything becomes very meaningful. Everything visually becomes richer. Sound becomes amplified and like the more evocative. So we're more sensitive to our environment in some ways. And we're more open, more sensitive and more yeah, you understand, yeah. Kind of enhancing in meaning, maybe.
In Harlem, we interviewed the Turkish researcher Gül Dölen, and she said psychedelics are the master key for opening the critical period. Do you agree with that notion?
Yeah, she's a very critical period plasticity researcher. And I agree with this idea, right? So this idea of like we're opening a window of plasticity. And in this window of plasticity, there's potential for relearning. Right? And I think it's part of that, but I don't think that it really explains the psychedelic phenomenology. So I think a lot of different things can open plasticity and they don't create visions, they don't do the same thing. So I think plasticity is part of the story, but not the whole story.
Do you have an explanation? Or there is no single explanation
of what they do,
yes,
pharmacologically,
what they do with you and
mechanism of
yes,
action kind of explanation on a pharmacological. So yeah, plasticity is close to that, but I believe also that there's something about it's not necessarily communicated that is related to the visual cortex and the fact that there's a lot of like 5-HT2A receptors in the primary visual cortex. So that kind of I think connects the visual regions in the brain with the higher level regions in the brain that relates to language and culture and self. And there's something about that relationship between senses and the higher level that is amplified, and that creates this amplified sensual world that is also connected to our own internal kind of ideas and thoughts and realms of fantasy and spiritual experiences or memories, right? So there's a relationship between these kind of things which are usually not with their senses. They suddenly become very much visual or auditory. So I would say something about that relationship between visual cortex and higher level regions. And a lot of my previous research as a neuroscientist was about enhanced connectivity between many regions in the brain that increases, and especially between visual cortex and higher level regions. Yeah.
Are you a materialist? So you believe that...
Oh, I don't answer this question. It's like...
it's too philosophical for you.
No matter what I will say, if I say I'm materialist, then somebody would... No, I'm agnostic. I'm really agnostic. Like, I lean into some experiences when they happen, if they're like very spiritual. I lean into them, and then when they're not there, I don't mind so much. So whenever an experience unfolds, I choose to believe in what's unfolding in the moment, and when it doesn't, it doesn't. So I just want to live the world at the moment without thinking about it too much. Yeah.
Some people say that the line between spirituality and science in this field is too blurred. Do you agree with that?
Yes. I agree that it's blurred. I don't think it's too blurred. I don't see it as a critique. I see it, the field is a study of what people experience as spiritual experiences. So it's like, it's not a blur. This is just what we are studying. And those type of experiences have been reported in spiritual traditions or in other practices or in prophetic experiences in the Bible. And the phenomenology of what's called spiritual experiences and psychedelic experiences is similar. So in a way, we are studying the spiritual capacity of the human mind. We don't have to say if that spiritual realm is out there or in here. That question is not necessarily relevant, I think. But we definitely study something that is similar to spiritual experiences.
Is it the substance itself that has these healing properties, or is it only facilitating an experience that has the healing property? What do you think?
I'm leaning more to the experience, but I'm not surprised if there's also something biological that is also important. But obviously the biological creates the experience and they're related, right? So the substance creates an experience. That experience has also a biological correlate. Not easy to separate them really. But a lot of my research has showed that the experience is what mediates the clinical outcomes. So I have research that shows that what's called peak experience or mystical experience mediates the outcome, or emotional breakthroughs, or insight, or the collective experience of communitas, of togetherness in ceremonies. All of these relate to the long-term outcomes. Obviously with the right integration, all these kind of like how you process those experiences, but the experiences are essential, I believe. Yeah.
Do we need a spiritual experience in order to have the therapeutic benefits of psychedelics?
Not necessarily. I mean, you can also have emotional breakthroughs that are not spiritual, that are cathartic. There's a release of some, maybe something that was suppressed, or an insight that came up, and that insight now motivates you to act differently in your life, and it's kind of, you are staying loyal to your insight, and it informs you how you do things, and doesn't necessarily have to be spiritual, but there are spiritual experiences. But experience in general, I think, is important, but not all psychedelic experiences are spiritual experiences.
What do you think about those companies that try to separate the drugs from the psychedelic experience?
Yeah, good luck. But I think they are a product of paradigmatic tensions. They operate from the biomedical paradigm, from that is kind of dominating psychiatry, and they operate from that paradigm. And in that paradigm, experience or context don't matter. It's only a biological intervention. And if you think from there and you operate from there, this is what you try to do. Psychedelic research tries to show how it's a deep process, it's an experience, it's set in setting, it's context. The idea that the experience and certain setting are important for therapeutic outcomes is a very radical idea from the point of view of the dominant paradigm. So if I was like the orthodoxy, the psychiatric orthodoxy, and a lot of the funding and then a lot of the resources and my identity is so attached to these ideas, then I would be afraid of what psychedelics research is trying to do. So in a way, I just see that as part of like paradigmatic tensions between the novelty of psychedelic research and the dominant biomedical paradigm. And from that sense, it's a bit sad that a lot of money goes there, because that money can go into more fruitful places in psychedelic research. Yeah.
Recently, you published an article about a kind of golden standard for clinical setting for clinical trials. Can you explain what did you find?
Yes. So that article that was recently published in Nature Medicine, so it's like a the success, I think, of putting it out in Nature Medicine also means that there's a maturity in the field, and there's also people from the kind of medicine paradigm that are willing to understand the importance of context. So what we did in that study was created a guideline with Chloe and Kyle Greenway and Chloe Provenovos Morgan, and with Kyle Greenway, we created a guideline in which we create the guideline of what setting needs to be reported in the clinical trials. So we involved 87 experts from the field, which are scientists, researchers, patients, and created a consensus-making process of what elements of the context need to be reported in clinical trials. So this can be lighting, music, the atmosphere in the room, the therapeutic modality, potential disturbances, cultural sensitivities, the proximity to the toilets, like all of these questions that feel important for people in the field to report. And it was a very beautiful process actually to create this consensus with all those experts. People from all over the field, from lots of backgrounds, list of like a lot of respected people from the field. And we believe that this guideline will help putting this idea of set and setting in the forefront of psychedelic research. So now when you do a clinical trial, you have a tool through which you can develop to report the context, and it doesn't stay under the hood. Until now, everybody are like, shh, we're doing psychotherapy, you know, and you want to call it psychological support, or you kind of want to reduce this idea that there is a human complexity and noise in the modality. That in reality, this is the feature, right? It is together with human relations, together with culture, together with music. All of these are the therapy. It's not just a substance. And it's a way to reveal that, you know, and expose that in a way that is kind of scientific and rigorous.
And you also studied the visual sensory experiences,
yes,
and how they affect the therapeutic benefits of psychedelics.
Yes.
What did you find there?
I think that vision is important, right? I didn't find like a clear correlates, but in a way, a lot of the insights or the breakthroughs or the spiritual experience, they have a visual component. So lots of the psychedelic experiences, let's say I close my eyes and suddenly I see my mother and I realize something about my mother, and then I see her smiling face shining, and like there's a relation that is bonded, but this has a visual component. And so I do see that the visual components are important for whatever intention we put behind the substance, whether it's like a religious intention in rituals or a therapeutic intention, or in festivals, it kind of opens the senses and it allows us to connect to the environment in certain ways, or connect to people in different ways. So the visual component is crucial, I think. Not all crucial, but you know, not always. It's not always visual, but the visual component is important.
What do you consider like the major breakthroughs in psychedelic science in the past couple of years?
Nothing. It's all a replication of the 60s, really, I think. It's like just unraveling something that was in the underground for a long time. But I don't think that there's a real breakthrough. The breakthroughs happened in the 50s and 60s. They were suppressed, and now they're just coming back. These are all modifications and tweakings and kind of new small details. But they're mostly just unraveling knowledge that exploded in the 50s and 60s, and now we're just bringing it back to life.
One of the main themes of the conference is integration. Can you talk about why integration is so important?
Yeah. So we can imagine in our life, even without psychedelics, that there are events that are bursts in our identity, or are like even traumatic events, or big celebrations, or something that shifts us strongly, has the potential for shifting our identity in a strong way. And these moments in our life, they are sensitive, they're like open, they're fragile, a lot of modifications are happening. And a lot of psychedelic experiences are similar. They open us to these like transformative events, but then we need something that kind of builds us together in a different way. And this is, I see integration is that. So the recombining aspects of ourselves. There we have insights, but then we want to change our behaviors and our actions based on their insights, and we need the tools to kind of follow the messages that or the ideas that we receive in those experiences. We want to connect more with people, for example, and then we need the community afterwards to continue the type of relationship that exists in the psychedelic experiences. So the integration is how to bring these things that are out there and how to just like bring them into day-to-day life. I see that as an important thing. It doesn't have to be like a psychotherapist that integrates you after the experience. And it can be a group of friends. It can be your involvement with art. It can be thinking about a scientific theory that relates to your experience. All of these are integrations. It's not just like a therapeutic thing. It's a how to make your being closer to these things that you experience. Yeah.
So far, we mostly spoke about individual experiences, but you also study psychedelics as collective experiences. Yeah. What kind of studies did you done in this field? Yeah.
So I moved out of the lab a few years ago to study retreats and ceremonies and rituals. And my main work is with Israelis and Palestinians doing peace work, but I'll get to it soon. Yeah, so I'll just do the more simple ones. Are retreats studying the experience of Communitas. Communitas is this shared collective moment of like joy and togetherness and solidarity. It can happen also spontaneously, let's say in festivals or political revolutions out there in the street, and you have hope that suddenly things will change, or natural disasters and suddenly there's this kind of the normal social structure collapses for a moment and everybody feel this solidarity. So there's a phenomenology, the experiences like there's magic in the air. You were suddenly all together or all in the same boat, there's magic in the air, everybody feel equal, identities don't matter. It's like it's a joyful collective moment. You know, it can be relaxed and serene, or it can be cathartic and like celebratory. And a lot of times psychedelics in groups create such experience, and we showed how that also relates to long-term changes in well-being. So we developed a questionnaire called Communitas, based on the research of Victor and Edith Turner, so they're anthropologists from the 60s, and we created a questionnaire based on their theory. And that is one study. And then this kind of trajectory continuing in studying psychedelic sociality, or a paper, theoretical one about social cure. So these are all the layers that psychedelics can help in creating communities, and research about psychedelic connectedness. And this kind of from this framework, we identified the issue of mental health as a social-political one that relates not to some biological imbalances, but to a sense of alienation, loneliness, dislocation, oppression. It's a social glue that crumbles currently in our world, also give rise to a mental health epidemic in depression, addiction, anxieties, traumas. All of these are relational wounds. And I believe that a lot of the healing should be relational healing. Yeah. So, and with psychedelics, they enhance some quality in relations that then can help in healing those wounds and creating new forms of communities. And this is kind of the idea behind that. So from this, I also study like more esoteric stuff, like Hasidic Jews that are drinking ayahuasca together. So this is a postdoc that I supervise. He's going to speak in an hour. And or other kind of groups that do social activists who do ayahuasca together with the purpose of like finding creative actions for their activism. And kind of there's a lot of proliferation of community religious groups, churches in the US that are just proliferating. So this idea of group work and community work becomes more and more popular in the last few years. And I think this is where the field is like moving to, expanding to. That's what people are like seeking in a way.
I read your article about the imaginary conversation with Martin Buber.
Oh, great, good. You did good homework. I'm very Buberian in my attitude, yeah.
What would Buber say about psychedelics then, if he would be alive today?
Buber would start by criticizing them, by criticizing this idea of inner healing, and he would say spiritual experience, like any type of experience, is just it's not a relation. Closing your eyes and experiencing some mystical experience is just an experience. Like riding a roller coaster is just an experience. And what we need in the world is relation. And the real spirit, and Buber can be quite strong in his like critique, yeah. But the real spirit lies in relations. So it lies in relations to nature, or between human in a good conversation and dialogue, or between a person and the spirit, or some kind of God of sort, from Buber's perspective. But what is actually enriches us and enlivens us is the relation. So in this sense, God is the ultimate relation, but every human relation or every relation with nature has a glimpse of that ultimate relation. So he would start by criticizing psychedelics as just another experience, and then I will convince him to take some LSD, and he will have a good dialogue with him, and he would appreciate the relational qualities and see them as enhancers of I and thou relation.
Yeah. So do you think that if we just go to a festival, dance and have psychedelics, that can be a healing experience?
Very much, yeah. There's research about it as well, but obviously you don't need research if you're there on the dance floor and you know that, like, when you're on the dance floor and it shakes and you're like you're in together and there's catharsis together, it's a very meaningful experience, yeah. And
by changing or adjusting the setting in festivals, can we enhance this therapeutic benefit for people?
Yes. So there's one group in Israel that I know of, and I participated in their work, that they do a type of hybrid between festival, ritual, and therapy, kind of. So it's a dancing throughout the night. It's the same person that kind of DJs from 8 p.m. to 12 in noon for many hours throughout the night and the morning. Everybody come before, eat together, and then everybody after chill together, and there's fire in the middle and 4 speakers around the fire. And it's like 300 people. And it's a type of festival, very relaxed in music, but also very ritualistic. And people come there to do a process. So they don't come just to just have fun. It's also fun, but really people come there with the intention of going through a process. And it's a very healing context. I find it to be one of the most unique hybrid contexts that I've experienced.
How and when did you decide to use these collective experiences, healing experiences, in relation to the Palestinian and Israeli conflicts?
Yeah, I decided that few things bubbled in me already when I was in Imperial College. And I think it was this feeling that I'm in the middle of some revolution. It felt like this. In early days, we felt like, oh wow, we're doing something really powerful. I'm during my PhD, finding this thing about LSD in the brain, and then boom, it's in The Guardian, and kind of there's a lot of excitement and also a sense of power that I have. And with that, I kind of realized, okay, but I'm away living in London, but really feeling the pain of my home, and I want to dedicate my work to that. And all of this kind of community ideas and peace work, they came together for me. They were like a trajectory that came together, informed by my experience in groups and realizing the potential for relations and wanting to do research about this. So that was, the wish to do that was 2016. And then starting to do the research was around end of 2018, where we went on a road trip with Natalie Ginsburg and Antoine Saka, and we interviewed many Israelis and Palestinians who drink ayahuasca together in the underground scene. That was the beginning of the research.
Palestinians from Israel?
Both, from Israel, Palestinians from Israel, and Palestinians from the West Bank.
Was it difficult to find people who are open to get together, like Israelis and Palestinians?
So that first thing we did was not people who intentionally get together for some dialogue.
Just separately?
No, they do meet. but not for the purpose of like conversation about it, or not for the purpose of peace work. It's Palestinians, let's say, that want to join Israelis because they don't have access to ayahuasca, and that's the only way to access. And it's usually they're a minority in these groups. That was the first study, yeah? They're a minority in these groups. And it's not political, really. It's more personal healing that happens to be in a shared context. The shared context brings something to the experience, because it really brings certain tension or certain wishes and certain hopes. It brings them to the experience. And then the next study was when we created our own groups, and the team expanded. We created our own groups, and that was already bringing people with this intention, and these groups were balanced. We flew people to Spain to do work together with ayahuasca. But before that, we had a preparation in the West Bank, going to the separation wall, going to refugee camps, embodying the kind of political reality in the body of people, and starting to build trust and conversations around identities and stories and narratives. So this kind of was more using the tools of like peace building or activism as part of that program. And the people there were mostly like from the ecosystems that we are already part of. And then friend bring friends, and kind of it grows. So it's usually the crazy people are in the beginning, right? In everything that is pioneering, it's kind of like outcast or people who are kind of wild enough to try something new. And then they try that, and if it works, they bring their friends, and the friends bring their friends. Kind of, that's the attitude, yeah.
And I suppose it was not without conflicts and difficulties to bring together these people, because the narratives are very different about the past, right?
Yeah. But it wasn't that simple. And the beauty is in the friction in some ways, I see. So the friction, when you do conflict resolution, it's not like not doing conflict. It's like how to work with friction, how to be comfortable with friction, knowing that tension also can give birth to something new. So when you just try to be in like comfortable, nice, harmonious spaces, there's no challenge there. So the friction is there's beauty in it, yeah.
So how do you deal with it when something difficult is coming up, like, but you were killing our ancestors, and what do you do? How do you work with that?
Sometimes we don't. Sometimes we completely don't know how to hold it, right? So it's not always easy. But we teach from the beginning ways of having dialogue in order to not to get to that situation. When that situation arrives that is like too flammable, too accusational, then we just sit with that, knowing that after that we'll have to integrate and work with it. But sometimes there are moments when there are ruptures that we just have to hold that rupture as is and not try to relax it necessarily, but just be aware of it and then integrate it together afterwards. But we didn't reach those spaces so much. In ceremonies, there were a lot of emotions that were expressed, also of anger in the ceremonies with ayahuasca. But in a way, they were part of the process. They were revealing something of the reality. They're revealing pain. They're exposing something in the relation. So we worked with them. They're important. We don't want to like necessarily suppress the anger.
Yeah. So when you did organize ayahuasca sessions in Spain, right? Yes. Together, how many people participated?
So we did 3 groups, each group 12 people, some 11, so 33 in total. There were 33 in total. Other facilitators was Sami Awad, who is a Palestinian peace activist. Armel Lehman is an Israeli therapist. Indius Brazil, he came from Brazil. He lives in the Amazon. And another Palestinian woman. So back then we were a group of 5 facilitators.
There is this saying that my liberation depends on your healing. Does it resonate with you?
Yeah, very much. Yeah, very much.
Can you explain what is behind that?
Where did you hear that sentence?
I think in a podcast. Yeah.
That from us, from one of us, or
Probably,
like related? Yeah.
I think so. From a Palestinian guy.
From Sami. Yeah, it sounds like him, right? So if Sami would say that, so he's a Palestinian, feeling oppressed by Israelis and living in systems that are built by Israelis and oppressive Israelis. And Israelis are very much a culture of trauma. And it's Holocaust and the mentality of survival, the existential threat, the violence that is also felt by anti-Semitism over the world, feed into like a violent mentality that is afraid, basically, afraid from what happens when Palestinians are free. And it's oppressing because of that fear. And the fear relates to the trauma. So if you heal the trauma, you also relax this kind of fear that exists, and it allows a more fluid dialogue in which the identity of the other doesn't necessarily threaten my identity.
And did you follow up with these people after the?
Oh yeah, so this project was 3 years ago. With many we followed up. The integration was like around 2 years, it felt like long integration. There were meetings for 6 months, but then also a year after, and then I did interviews also 2 years after. And they're long follow-ups as research, but also as a community that continues to do stuff together. Not like a cohesive community, but more like pockets of people that continue projects, some more engaged, some are not engaged at all, but they all feel kind of related to each other. So after these 3 groups in Spain, we met all of the groups together. A month after, we met all of the groups together to bring them into one kind of community. So the idea was that through these shared experiences, you enter an ecosystem, and there's activities and creations that are happening in that ecosystem. Some have created a festival, some went to do action, some are artists. Each one is doing their thing, but that kind of empowers everybody in that ecosystem. That's the ideal. So we continued. And now with few other people that were participants, I have also a performance that we do together. And we created a ritual performance for a wide audience that share our journeys together through storytelling and music and theater, but also bringing the audience into a process. So it kind of takes people into a deep process of grief, the audience, and then it picks it up into more like music of solidarity and connection. And we share stories from our psychedelic stories in the performance. So this is one of the ripples that came out of that project. And the other is, together with other people, we opened a nonprofit called Ripples that continues this work and wants to expand this work. So we did a workshop 2 days ago here in the conference. We were supposed to do a performance this evening, but it got canceled because 4 of our team couldn't fly because of the airspace closure and problems with visas for Palestinians. But we still continue to do this type of work that is still a continuation of something that we started in that project in Spain 3 years ago.
So October the 7th did not disrupt this process?
Disrupt some of it. Like, it's not that everything is, disrupt some of it, but compared to other groups that were dialogue groups that were like polarized in that moment, we had like a Zoom call, 25 people, 1 week after October 7th that showed like a strong solidarity. And those people who were in the journeys together, they're not easily pulled to their camps, or they're pulled for a moment and then like balanced back quickly than others. So that is the moment where I felt actually that it worked. It's always hard to know if it works, psychedelics, because there's so many other things that are part of it. But this was a moment that I felt that what we did worked after October 7th. Obviously it disrupted, and now there's like a request of like not doing a joint work together because it's too sensitive, but still to do like psychopolitical healing, each group by itself, until we can meet again, that it feels safe again to meet again. So right now we opened the nonprofit to continue this work, but we are kind of in a slow, steady mode, building it to have stable foundations, building the art, the research, the education components, and soon, hopefully, starting to also work again together in the space. Yeah.
I mean, judging from the current positions of the majority of Israeli society, I would suspect that you are viewed as a kind of idealist kibbutz peaceniks, right?
Maybe. Yeah.
What was the reception or feedback from the Israeli society? Was it like publicized in the media?
Yeah, it was in outlets, and people like it. They see the utopian in it, the idealist. I'm a proud idealist, So we call ourselves grounded dreamers, right? So the dream is the guiding, but then it's grounded, and keeping the hope is important, right? Even if it's like not going to work now, there are people who do what is right and maintaining what makes sense to us, and keeping some hope and some love and some relations and some aspirations for a better future, for even if it's just in our children's generation. But that is an important work. So it does touch people. It's also like people might kind of see it as naive or as idealistic, as you say. But we're fine with this. It's a reality that is mad, really, and it feels this for us. It feels like right now there's this rupture of violence, and it makes sense also on a personal level and a healing perspective to dedicate myself not to that violence, to something that might change it, but not by itself, by being part of a network of people who seek change, right? And it's not like this, let's give drugs to everybody and everybody will be loving each other and happy and put it in the water. It's not that vision. It's a vision of like contributing the tools that we have in order to support a larger ecosystem that already exists, but it's quiet and it's like not necessarily in social media, and there are people who are doing the work and continue to do this type of work, and it doesn't have to be with psychedelics, and psychedelics is one part of a larger network. Yeah.
I suppose it's not easy to be Israeli these days.
No.
So what do you do after a particularly heavy day? How do you reconnect with your inner light in the end of the day? Do you have any methods?
My kids are good for that. Yeah. So my kids, like when I'm with them, I tend to try when I'm in the moment to put my phone on flight mode and not to engage with anything. So when I'm with my family, my work life and the news, I kind of put away so I can be present in relation. So my kids give a lot of joy, and I just have fun with them. And the work I do with actually the Palestinians and Israelis, the performance that we started doing, we started creating last year, give me a lot of meaning and a lot of joy and a lot of hope. And I know it's like in a bubble, and it's a cute bubble, but this bubble, we already feel that it inspires other people, and we see how this thing that we started to create is impacting other people. And when I'm in that zone, in the creative zone, with those people, with this group that we're part of, it feels like very beautiful and very meaningful. When we cry as well, and when we feel the pain. If I ignore it, then I feel the anxiety. But when I'm in a group that I can grieve together and be sad together, and that there are Israelis and Palestinians, and I share this pain together, and I know that this pain of the land is something that is shared, this is where I feel rich in my life. And if I don't do that, this is where the anxiety comes. Yeah? If I don't cry, this is where the anxiety comes. Yeah.
How do you see the future of psychedelics? Where do you see this field in like 10 years?
I see it in the community aspect. I see that one. Yeah, I think the community aspect would be the where the field is going right now. This is the fashion right now, and I think you can see the religious churches in the U.S. is something that is happening. Sorry, the tears and start coughing. Yeah, but relationality in general is, I think, the direction. I've been like, when I started speaking about relational stuff like 8 years ago, I felt I was like alone in this, or there were only few voices doing that. And now it feels like a very common sense, popular, fashionable thing. And I feel the field is moving out of like inner healer modalities to understanding that healing is also includes the social political realms. And I think that this is the direction of the field.